Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is the 5th video in the series. Doesn't seem like I've got a huge amount done so far, but with the summer weather, I've been enjoying some time somewhere else, getting some other bits and pieces done and getting in a few days out with the family. But this is video number 5. What we're going to be doing today, as I said last time, is taking a look at the bonnet, and specifically cutting a hole in the bonnet, slightly scary, to fit a bonnet scoop. Now technically the scoop isn't really needed for my particular model, where I'm going to have the Chevy LS3 with a front intake where it draws air from the front of the car, but this time I actually prefer the look of the scoop, and whereas previously they used to suck air in and feed the engine from the top, it's not really necessary, but it does look better in my opinion. Forgive me if there are any Cobra owners out there without a scoop, but I think they look better. Anyway, I'm Roy Farr, and this is my build of a Gardner Douglas 427 Mark IV. Really hot today, so even with a double garage and with the car sitting on the dolly in there isn't a huge amount of room to work around it and do any significant work on a bonnet. Least of all, I don't really have a work stand or anything useful of a good enough size to fit the bonnet on, so I've actually brought it out here in the garden. I've taken a bit of the shelving from underneath the dolly that I don't need anymore now that I've got the chassis tucked underneath. I've simply rested the bonnet on that, and I'm going to be using that to just support the weight and mark out the areas before I start cutting into it. So let's go have a look. So here's the bonnet, and just sitting on that wooden shelf that I had from the dolly previously. Obviously with these bonnets it's the wider section that sits at the back and the narrower section that sits at the front. So if we come in and just look a little bit closely here, we can see just a couple of holes here, a couple of markers for holes, and where the 20mm sign is there, they will be for the bonnet catches, old style chrome ones which just twist with a key lock in the top and release the bonnet to pivot up from the front. And then coming back here, this is the bonnet scoop. So usefully the guys have left some masking tape all around the edges which show where the holes need to go. So the first order of business is basically marking up the bonnet to show exactly, hello Mr. Plane, to show exactly where the bonnet scoop is going to go, and then we can mark it out on there to start cutting the hole, lay the scoop over the top and mark that out, and then we can use that once we've taped it in place just to drill the holes all the way through the scoop itself and then straight through to the body. Some people rivet these on. There are a few concerns about rivets and IVA. IVA is the independent vehicle assessment that takes a look at all the different parts of the car to see whether or not they're roadworthy, and there are some radius checks. So this is basically how round the various bolts are and bits and pieces on the car to make sure they're safe enough. So we might go with stainless steel screws or bolts on the top, but we'll see later when we get there. Okay, let's start marking it up. Here's the various tools we're going to have a go with today. So we've got the jigsaw down there for cutting the hole. I'm really a little bit worried about that because it can be quite aggressive. So I've actually, a Heath Robinson job maybe, but I've actually taped some cardboard and some felt onto the bottom there to try and cushion the base of the jigsaw a little bit before we get too far into running it across the body. We've got the drill, we've got some pens and pencils. It's like a Blue Peter video this now, isn't it? Look at that. Masking tape. We've got the stepper drills there to cut the couple of 20mm holes that we need for the bonnet catches, and then a variety of different jigsaw blades. We'll try and find the finest one possible so we don't risk any coarse tearing or anything like that. Okay, so according to the GD assembly images that they provide, the scoop needs to sit 3 inches from the trailing edge of the bonnet and 14 inches from each side from the catches. So we've got to create a sort of triangle, 3 inches up here and 14 inches from there. So what we'll do now is we'll just get the masking tape out and just mark this out roughly, and then we can look at how that looks and how it sits on the front there. So let's just have a look at the 3 inches. So we're just on the edge there. And there. Right on the edge there. Okay. Actually, I think this piece of cardboard might do better because it will flex with the bonnet slightly. So let's just get that on there. All I really need to do is just get a reasonably straight line just on the edge here, just so I can see where 3 inches is across the back edge of the bonnet here. There we go, that'll do. Now we need to know the centre point. So what we'll do is we'll get the tape measure again and we'll look at that 14 inches from there and we'll mark a couple of lines. Do with a fabric tape measure here actually, which we do have one, but that'll be buried indoors somewhere. So we are looking like that there, that's 14 inches from that side. And hopefully 14 inches from this side will give us the same sort of point. If it doesn't, then we'll have to have another look at what the instructions are, but let's have a look at what this looks like. Clearly nowhere near. So after marking that 14-inch line distance from the bonnet catch hole on each side, we've actually got 2 marks now, about 3 inches apart. So I'm not quite sure what's happened there, but the assembly reference image definitely shows 14 inches from what looks like the centre point to a mark in this corner. I'm assuming it's from this bonnet catch, but I can't actually tell on the picture. On a black bonnet, it's quite difficult to see. So what I'm going to do, given that these 2 catches are the same distance from the edges of the bonnet, that's central, these 2 marks are now equidistant from the side of the car, so I will be taking the centre point, just dividing this in half, and then that will be the centre point of the bonnet. I'll measure it up again just to check all around, but that's what I'm going with for now. So we'll just mark that section in the middle here. Actually, let's use that just to get in the centre and try and find that clearly. Actually about 6 centimetres difference there, so we'll go 3 in the middle. That should give us our centre point. There we go. And on the bonnet scoop we've got a screw hole marked there, which looks like that's the centre point. We've got one either side and then one on each corner, so that has to be the centre point there. So we'll line that one up with that. That will be the back end. Go. Now what we'll do is we'll get some masking tape and we'll run it across the front here now, just to get a rough line across the front. That might not be straight, but that'll do for now. Let's just see how far we are in terms of distance now. So we're 23 centimetres on that side, and this will be a bit of trial and error back and forth. Moved it 21 there. Let's move that along a bit. Let's go 21 and a half. Try not to move it. 22. So we need to bring that back a bit more. And we're going to give this a little bit of masking tape on the front just to try and keep it still. And then we'll go down each edge. And just measure it again and make sure that we're happy. Good. Right, let's just mark up the sides. Those 2 bits on the front are way too flimsy to hold it still, so let's just put some pieces along the edges here. And again, going between the bolt holes so that we don't get in the way of those when we come to drill them in a second. Right, there we go. A few more bits of masking tape added just to try and keep it as still as I can. I don't want to tattoo the car with duct tape, but this should do. It's pretty still, but these holes are only 3mm, so it wouldn't take much if you drill one and then get to the last one and it's moved slightly for them to be out of alignment, but hopefully we'll be okay. So it's time to start drilling holes. Let's get to it. Seems easy enough. So there we go, all 27 holes cut. We can now take all the masking tape back off, remove the scoop, and then we can see the holes underneath through which we can then mark up the area right underneath the scoop that we'll need to cut out. We'll leave those bits of masking tape on for the moment, on the scoop itself. There we go. So that gives it a line to cut through. Now let's just flip this over and see how it looks from the other side, from underneath. A few little bits of gel just coming away there underneath, but that's not going to matter. Excellent. Right, so if we look at the underside of the scoop, you can see obviously all the holes that I've just drilled through from the top and straight through the bonnet as well. But if you look on the edge, you think this up the other way up, once the bonnet is cut out, you want the scoop hole cut through the bonnet underneath here. You don't want it too wide because then there won't be any room for the holes to grab onto the edges of that strip around the edge of the bonnet there. If you have it too shallow, then you'll have a bit of a ridge on the inside here and it'll look a bit unsightly from underneath. Now, how many people spend their time looking underneath someone's bonnet to see how well finished it is? I do. So let's make sure we get it right. So if I look on here, it's difficult to measure because the scoop curves away quite so much, but I look on the edge here, we're looking at about 3 centimetres, maybe even 2, but 2 doesn't give you a lot of room from the edges of those holes, and I'd be worried that when you start bolting these through there wouldn't be a lot of space there on the edge of this bonnet for those screws or bolts to go through and hold. So I'm thinking it looks like 3 centimetres is where I'd be comfortable all the way around. 3 centimetres from the outer edge, but actually looking at where the holes are, they're all about 1 centimetre from the edge, so I'd probably go 2 centimetres from the holes all the way around, and that looks like that would actually come in okay. So I think that's what I'm going to mask up on the bonnet. Yeah, let's go with that. So there will be a bit of trial and error here because I just need to mask up the bonnet again on the top here, either side of those holes. But this should be a little bit easier because I can just put the tape just inside the holes and then draw on the tape. So we'll just do that there. Do the same the other side. I'm sure the guys in the factory actually have a template for all of this stuff and they make it a lot easier. But not me. It's probably not needed there, but we'll just use some masking tape to create a bit of a template across here. Just so we've got something to draw around. And because I'm going to be using a jigsaw on here in a minute, and I've already mentioned that I've put a piece of padding on the bottom of the jigsaw, I'm just going to put some either side here as well, so the jigsaw's got something else to run on, and we're not smashing up the top of the bonnet with the underside of the jigsaw quite so much. course, a bit of duct tape's not going to make a huge amount of difference, and it is going to be primed and painted anyway, but can't hurt. So let's do it. Did I say duct tape? Masking tape. You know what I meant. Did I miss one of those holes? No, I didn't. That's fine. Okay, now let's mark 2 centimetres across from each of these holes. I'll do it this way because I'm right-handed and it's a bit easier to see. Again, just doing this by eye as to which direction and which rough angle the 2 centimetres needs to be, but I'm just following the angle of the scoop and the duct tape and the masking tape. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 25, 26, 27. Cool. Okay, now, hopefully we can use the edge of the scoop as a rough guide, and certainly use them on the straight bits here just to draw the curve. I know it's the outer edge, not the inner, but as long as we get it roughly lined up, that'll be good enough. There we go. So that's the hole we need to drill. Now, do we need to come all the way to the front? Yeah, I think so. Okay. Now, I'm going to use the stepper drill again because we've got the 20mm, if you can see that on there, 20mm increment right at the top. I'll be able to use that to cut the holes for the bonnet catches up there, but I'm just going to use it to open a slight hole here so I can get the jigsaw bit in, and we can start the cutting. So we're going to start here, just inside this line here. See whether or not that gives us enough to get a jigsaw bit in. Let's go grab the jigsaw. Right then, here we go. Lots of jigsaw blades from various woods and laminates. Even more jigsaw blades. We've got loads of different blades to choose from, but something like this, you can see that very well there, that would probably rip the bonnet to shreds. We don't want something really, really coarse like that, so I'm trying to find the finest one we've got. Strangely enough, none of these say fiberglass on them, so they're all a wood rated one. You can probably get fiberglass ones, who knows, I've not looked. I've got some here for metal that have got an 18 teeth per inch on them that are quite small, and I think I might try those first, because what I really don't want to do is start tearing this all up, even though it's underneath and you won't see it. So I'm going to try it with something fine first and see how we get on with those. Let's just pop that in there. Actually, don't think that one's long enough. now that I've added some padding on the bottom, so let's use one of the others. There we go, that's a bit bigger. As long as we're not going to catch the underside of the dolly. No, that should be fine. Okay. Let's have a look and see how we can get on here. Actually, knowing where I'm going to start with this now, I'm going to add some more masking tape on the back, because I'm going to start the jigsaw straight across the back here. And I don't want any of that making a mess of the back of the bonnet. Or indeed the front of the bonnet. Yeah, that's better. Let's try that. There we go. That guy sits on there. We have a nice flow of air underneath into the top of the engine. As I say, not strictly needed, because the top of the LS3 engine will actually have an air filter right down by the front of the actual scoop in the front of the bumper, but it won't hurt having some airflow into the top of the engine. So there we go, all done. A little bit of tidying up and probably a little bit of closing up these joints here, but they'll clamp up anyway when the bolts go through, and we're all done. Okay, last thing today is just cutting those 20mm holes for the bonnet catches. So stepper drill all the way through to the 20 on the end, basically all the way through the whole thing, and that will give us a nice 20mm hole. So here we go. And we can just quickly pull this through from underneath. We just help round off the edges on the back. There we go. Aside from giving it a bit of a rub down on the edge, that's basically all it needs before it can go off to paint. So that's it for now on this video. I didn't need to go all around and actually fit the scoop to the bonnet, as it'll only be taken apart again for painting. With this out of the way, next time I can just test fit the bonnet or the hood and the boot or the trunk panels, again to minimise the amount of work needed when the body comes back from the painters. Don't forget to like and subscribe. So once again, until next time, thanks for watching.